You are listening to the VBAC Link podcast, special episode 11. Today, Julie and I are going to be doing a little Q&A with you. We are excited to be talking a little bit more about us and our careers as a doula, what we've seen, what's been hard, what has been kind of fun, and all of that fun stuff. So right away, let's get going.
You are tuned in to the VBAC Link podcast with Julie Francom and Meagan Heaton, VBAC moms, doulas, and educators here to help you get inspired for birth after having a C-section. Together, they have created a robust VBAC preparation course along with this uplifting podcast for women who are preparing for their VBAC. Although these episodes are VBAC specific, they encourage all expectant moms to listen and educate themselves on how to avoid a cesarean from the get-go. The purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. It is not meant to replace advice from any other qualified medical professional. Here are your hosts, Julie and Meagan.
Okay, Julie, are you excited?
I am so excited. There's some good questions.
We haven't done a Q&A for a little while,
Yeah.
so this is going to be fun, and these are some great questions. So we will both be answering today. So number one is, what is it like to be a doula and have to manage your kids and being a mom and a business owner? So it's kind of a long question, a lot of things.
Yeah.
But what is it like managing?
Oh my gosh.
We've got little ones at home, both of
Yeah.
us. Yeah.
So while we're recording, like today, my kids are 5, 3, 2, and almost 1, which sounds nuts. Oh my
5,
gosh.
3,
Like
2, and
5,
almost
3,
one.
2, and almost 1. That's
Mine will
nuts.
be 7, almost 5, and no, 5,
And 3.
and
Almost
3,
3.
almost 3.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. And it's crazy.
7, 5, and 3.
So, man, you guys, we could not be doulas without a solid support team behind us. So I'll just talk a little bit about how I manage, and then Meagan can talk about how she manages. Because, guys, Meagan, if you didn't already know this, is a machine. She gets more done in a day than I even dream about doing in a month. And I'm not
I'm an
even
Energizer
kidding.
bunny sometimes.
I'm like, we talk on the phone and I'm like, I'm just going to take a nap. And then I take a nap for like an hour. And then I wake up and Megan's like conquered the world,
oh no.
attended 5 births, taking her kids to gymnastics, and like all of those things. I just laughed about it.
We just live a busy life. That's for sure.
So 4 kids under 6, guys, it's a little crazy. And being a doula and being on call makes it a little crazy. So the first thing that I do to make sure that I am not overextending myself or my family is I really limit the amount of clients I take. So I just take 1 to 2 clients a month. And the only exception to that would be if I had a repeat client, because I will always take repeat clients. I think I'll be a grandma still taking repeat clients, because those repeat clients are super near and dear to my heart. So that's the first thing I do, is I make sure that the amount of time I need to find on-call childcare is really not as frequent, so that I don't burn out my on-call babysitters. And then the second thing that I do is I make sure that I have a really good slew of people lined up that can help me. So my first go-to is a sweet little young woman that lives on the street behind me, and she is 15 years old. And she's homeschooled. So I just let her and her mom know whenever I am on call. And whenever I have a client texting me saying, hey, I'm like losing mucus plug, or I'm having some contractions, or whatever it is, I always update them. And then usually she'll be able to come over as soon as I need her. And it takes her like 3 minutes to get to my house. So it's great. If she's not available, I have a few other people in the community that I can call and talk to and send my kids to. And of course, I have my kindergartner, who I have one particular neighbor who also has a kindergartner on call to be ready to go and pick him up or drop him off to school if he needs to. So I don't know how it works out, but it always works out. Oh my gosh, I can't even forget to tell you, my amazing husband and his amazing job, he has pretty flexible schedule, so he can work from home. So a lot of times I'll just call him home if I know I'm going to be headed to a birth, and he can be home with the kids while he's working, which he doesn't love, but it's manageable. But I have never had to miss a birth because of childcare or being a mom and being a business owner. You know, it all works out. And one time I was talking to Meagan, and I'm like, My life is very ADD right now. I do things in like 5-minute chunks. Do the dishes for 5 minutes. Type a blog for 5 minutes. Play with the kids for 5 minutes. Clean off the table for 5 minutes. Do the laundry for 5 minutes. Break up a fight for 5 minutes. Live my life like 5 minutes at a time. And that's how I make it work. Meagan, why don't you tell everyone? Because Meagan is a lot busier of a doula than I am. Like I said, she is a machine.
Well, I don't know if I'm necessarily a machine, but like I said, I just kind of am an Energizer bunny. It's really just how I've been my whole life. I just kind of am a go, go, go all the time. And if I'm not going, I'm either really sick or something's wrong. So I think a lot of people say, like, how do you do it? How are you so busy? And I think it's just, I'm just used to it. So, like I said, I do have 3 kids. My oldest daughter is in gymnastics and dance, and so is my other daughter. And then we've got school and all that stuff. So it can get pretty hectic when a mom calls and I have no idea who's going to pick my daughters up from school, or I've got dance and gymnastics that night. And so one of the biggest things for me that has helped me, and this sadly isn't something that I figured out right away. I tried to get an on-call babysitter, went on care.com and interviewed a slew of babysitters, found a couple great ones. They said they'd all be great on-call babysitters. That was cool. Well, just like, a lot of people find out with the on-call life, it's not ideal. It's not ideal. And I had to understand that, they couldn't just wait around for me to call them whenever. Because, sometimes moms do go into labor at night. And if my husband's available, I'm not going to pay a babysitter. Yeah. So one of the ways that I have managed is I have found a college student who truly is very available, and she helps me so much. And so that has taken a lot of stress off of me. Another thing is I have an amazing friend community, my friends in my neighborhood, and I have amazing friends. They save me all the time. In fact, there's been sometimes I'm at a birth and I don't even know where my kids are at and who's texting who to pick up this person, but I'm confident that it all works out and, is figured out. So my support team as well, like she said, we could never be doulas without the support team that we have. And my husband, when my husband worked a 9-to-5 job, he was very flexible and, he would come home whenever I needed him. But now that he's in law school, it's not so easy. So he supports me completely, but he is just less available. So I'm so grateful for these people that I can call and count on, taking so-and-so to gymnastics or picking them up from school. And so it's been really, really nice. And, as a business owner, I've been a doula for almost, 4.5 years, almost at this point. And it took me a long time in the beginning to really figure out how I wanted to balance my life, and things were slower. And now that doula business in general and doula clients, it's a little bit more hectic because I've taken a little bit more than I probably should.
Tell them how many you had the most in the month.
I had 10.
Right? In October.
In October, and I made it to all of them.
Last October, guys.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I don't normally take 10, you guys. But yeah, so 3 to 4 is really good. 5 is totally doable. But without my support system, I just don't know how I would have been able to do it. And honestly, my kids, you guys, my kids are amazing, because even though I may not be at a birth, especially now with the podcast stuff, we've got podcast interviews and we've got doula interviews and prenatals and blogs to write and manuals to write and courses to do. And so my kids have been amazing and have truly allowed me to be the businesswoman today that I am. So
awesome.
My support team. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. Meagan, what was your most exciting experience as a doula?
Man, I saw this question on the agenda tonight and I was thinking, what is the most exciting experience? I've had so many really exciting experiences. I'm trying to think. Just birth. I think one of the most recent, it was really exciting, but nerve-wracking at the very same time, was a mom who transitioned quite quickly. And yeah, so she was in the tub and she was laboring beautifully. And we saw a shift, and I asked her what she was feeling, and she was starting to say she couldn't do it, which we know as doulas, that's a sign that sometimes things are getting really close and transitions happening. And so I continued to watch her, and I said, why don't you're safe here, you're okay, but why don't we start making our way, getting out of the tub, start making our way to the hospital. And she was like, okay, that sounds good. So we got her out and dried her off, and we were just about ready to put her, we got her underwear on, and we were just ready to put her skirt on, and her water broke. And everything happened. Quite a shift. And so I didn't even let her get dressed. I just gave her a big towel of a loincloth, and we put her in the car, and I called the hospital and let them know we were on our way. And we got there and had a baby. So that was one of the most exciting things. It was so exciting. She is doing it. She's doing everything she wanted. She really did want to, labor at home as long as possible. And she got that exact thing. And we got there safe and sound and had a baby, and it was beautiful. But that was a really, really exciting moment and stressful at the same time as in the back seat. And we're all going doing horse lips together. So that was kind of an exciting moment.
Well, shoot, I was going to tell my experience about crazy car ride.
Car rides are fun and exciting and nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Hip squeezes and trying to keep that baby in until you can get to the hospital. So, yeah. Okay, so like Meagan, man, every birth I think is exciting.
So exciting. Just driving
there. Happy moment.
Yeah.
It's just so much good happens, and it's really exciting. But I think perhaps one of the experiences that sticks out in my mind the most was a mom who was having a home birth, and this was her third baby, and her first birth was a traumatic hospital birth, and then her second birth was a traumatic home birth transfer. And so she had a few triggers, and she really did not want to be transferred to the hospital again. She really wanted to have a beautiful home birth experience. And I remember I got there, and she was just laboring beautifully and perfectly. And we were friends by this point, as I get to be pretty good friends with most of my clients. And she was just laboring, and we were having a good time. And I knew, obviously, a lot of her history and her trauma surrounding her birth. And it got to the point where she was struggling, and I think she was entering transition, but she was not handling it very well. But she actually slowed her labor down because of how hard she was working between contractions, telling us I want to go to the hospital, I want to transfer right now, I can't do this, I don't want to do this. And so I remember, like I said, she was really struggling, but I knew she didn't want a transfer. I knew she was progressing beautifully. I knew that baby was safe. She had a really good home birth midwife taking care of her. And I just knew that if we would have transferred her, she would have really regretted it. So I sat down and talked to her. I looked her straight in the face, and I don't do this to every client, so don't think I'm crossing a line here, but you learn kind of where your boundaries are with each client, and you, as a doula, you adapt to that, and you respond to that, and you interact based on their personality and your relationship level. So I looked her dead in the eyes, and I said, listen. And this was a doula. She was also a doula, which you cannot do doula yourself. You cannot doula yourself.
You just can't.
It doesn't work. Laborland is a funny place in your head. I said, you are a doula. What you are doing is slowing down your progress. And this is what I want you to do. I said, for 1 hour, give me 1 hour, and you can yell and scream and swear and curse and throw a fit while you're having a contraction. But between contractions, I need you to stop talking. I need you to focus on taking deep breaths in and out. And then when another contraction starts, you can yell and scream and freak out and swear and tell us how awful we are for not taking you to the hospital. And then when the contraction's done, be quiet, take nice deep breaths, because you are slowing your labor down. And I said, and if you still want me to take you to the hospital, after 1 hour from now, I will drive you myself. Midwife and husband can be in the back seat of my car, and I will take you there. And she said, okay. And she did it. And guess what? Her baby was born 1 hour and 2 minutes later at home. Beautiful water birth. And it was perfect. And so I think that just sticks out in my mind because I like the midwife had talked to her husband had talked to her. Nobody was able to get through to her to like calm her down and get her in a good place for labor to progress naturally. But I was able, for whatever reason, I was able to connect with her and help her slow down so that she could have a safe and satisfying birth experience. And it really, really reinforced the idea for me about how big of an impact a doula can really have on a birth. So that was my most exciting experience, I would say, one of them for sure.
That is so awesome. All right. Okay, so the next question is, what was your most difficult moment as a doula?
Oh my gosh. Difficult moment as a doula. You know, as a doula, sometimes you see and hear things that providers and nurses are doing that you know is either just a flat out lie or is used to cause fear or is just misinformation. And a doula's place is not to stand up and yell at all the people and tell everyone all the things in the birth room. Or it's not your job as a doula to tell somebody that their provider sucks, has a high C-section rate, and you will never have a happy birth experience with them because it's their birth. It's their birth, and it's not your job to stand up and advocate, because then you create a negative birth space for them, and then everyone comes in the birth room ready to fight with the doula. And that is not something you want in your birth space. It's just not, I promise you. So probably one of the hardest moments with me was when I had a client who went to the hospital. She didn't call me. She texted me, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. And so I always tell my clients to just call me instead of text, because I do not hear text messages when I'm sleeping. She was in early-ish labor. Her baby was posterior. We'd known that for a while, and I tried to help her get baby in a good position. She just wasn't ready to do the things I think that were required of that. And so she gets to the hospital, gets an epidural when she's 2 centimeters dilated. And by the time I get her text messages, she's like already been with the epidural for several hours. And so it gets to the point where she's having very slow progression. And I knew this particular doctor at this particular hospital, and I knew that she had a very high C-section rate, and the hospital has a very high C-section rate also. And so I could see that things were kind of heading that way. And so she was really scared. And I told her, I'm like, listen, we can try and turn you on your side and flip back to other sides, or try and do positions with the epidural, or we can ask the anesthesiologist to come back in here and turn the epidural off so that it will wear off, and so that we can get you in a better position to get your baby actually descending. And she decided to do that. And so the anesthesiologist came in and turned the epidural off. And slowly she started feeling the contractions again, and they were really intense. They hooked her up to Pitocin because, labor wasn't progressing fast enough for their standard and all sorts of things. So she had all the interventions. And so contractions, when you're coming off an epidural and you have Pitocin, it's not a very happy experience. And so she was struggling to cope through them, and we were doing everything we could. We got the squat bar out. We got turn around on our hands and knees. We were doing counter pressure, her husband and I, and we were doing all of these things to try and get the baby to engage. And then the OB comes in, and she was pissed. She was pissed. She came in, and I'm going to talk about some obstetric violence right now. So if that would be a trigger for you, you should probably just skip forward a minute or two. But she came into the birth room and she said, I can't believe that you guys are doing this. I have delivered over 5,000 babies, and not once has this ever worked. And I need to do a cervical check right now. And she's like, I can't believe you're doing this. She just kept saying that over and over. And my client was clearly going through a contraction and really struggling. And And this OB was just ranting about how pissed off she was that we turned off the epidural and how unnecessary it was and how it wasn't going to be working and how she was going to end up in a C-section anyways, no matter what we did. And then my client was trying to cope through contractions, just coming off the epidural with Pitocin. And she gets right up in my client's face and she says, "This was a bad idea. You should not have done this. I have never seen this work," like waving her finger in my client's face. And she said, "I need to do a cervical check on you right now." And my client was like, "Can we wait until this contraction's over?" And the doctor puts her gloves on and said, "No, we need to do a cervical check right now during a contraction." And so the provider sticks her hand in there, does a cervical check. My client is like screaming because she's so uncomfortable. And the provider looks at the nurse and she's like, "This cervix is swollen. Was this cervix swollen before you turned off the epidural?" And the nurse was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Well, it's even more swollen now." And she like rips her hand out and takes her gloves off. And she's like, "We are going to have to do a C-section right now," and like walks out of the room.
Oh my gosh.
And you hear stories about this all the time. Like not all the time, I guess. They're not too common, but like they're not too rare either. And my client was just crying and miserable, and we turned the epidural back on, and we got the baby out, and she went back for a C-section, and it was my very first C-section as a doula, and it was really hard to witness her go through an experience like that and be treated like that in the birth space when there's like nothing I could really do about it. I was pretty helpless standing there watching that happen.
Wow, that would be really hard.
Yeah.
That'd be really, really hard. One of the hardest times for me as a doula was a birth that I'm like going to try not to cry right now. It just happened this last year in 2018, I guess, technically last year. So I had a phone call one day from someone and I missed it. And the voicemail, she left a voicemail and said, "Hi, I'm calling. I'm looking for a doula for my daughter. If there's any way you can call me back, we'd love for you to call me back." And so that wasn't too alarming to me. I've had moms and mother-in-laws actually call me and say, "Hey, like I'm looking for a doula for my daughter and my son," or So I said, okay. So I called, and the conversation I had with this amazing woman was one that I did not expect. It was in regards, she wanted a doula for her daughter who was having twins and was due pretty soon. And her daughter's husband, her son-in-law, had cancer and was not expected to live and make it to the delivery. So they were trying to find a doula, someone who was educated and understood birth that could be there with her. And, I had things where the dad wasn't present. Like, I had been to many births where the dad wasn't able to be there. And so the dad not being there wasn't necessarily different, but this was a whole different level. Mm-hmm. And so she said she wanted to meet me, and I was excited to meet them. And so the day I went to go meet them, I drove up to the Cancer Institute here in Utah. And driving up there, it was heavy on my heart. It was heavy on my heart, and I didn't know what to expect. And walking in down this hall, winding down this hall, and then up into this other hall, and I didn't even know where I was going. And I find this room, and I have no idea what to expect on the other side. I'm excited to meet this family. I've been talking to them on the phone, and so I knock on the door, and I walk in, and her husband's there, and her family's there, and his family's there, and we meet and we chat, and it was amazing. It was so amazing. And I left, and I just wanted to work with them so bad. And I was excited, but also my heart was heavy. And anyway, so I ended up working with them, and the dad was not doing super great, not super strong, but was able to attend the birth. And so I think emotionally that was one of the hardest births for me. Yeah. It was a birth that I will never forget. ever. Some crazy stuff happened during the birth, which kind of made it hard. But, I had to stay professional and make sure that I was there for this mom. So that would probably be one of the hardest moments for me as a doula. And I would say it was more hard emotionally because I really attached myself to this family, like I do all families. But yeah, it was hard. And then when the husband passed away, that was a hard night. That was a hard night. My doula heart broke. And I had actually just gotten back from a birth and then heard about his passing. And so I'd say that was one of the hardest for me.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Wow, those are some heavy questions.
I know.
Well, let's pick it back up, I guess. Let's do it. Meagan, what is the best gift a client has ever given you?
So there have been some fun gifts. And, as a doula, I never expect a gift. To me, the gift, if anyone, is being at their birth. That is such a gift. But if I were to break it down and actually, talk about gifts, in general, besides, of course, welcoming me into their birth space, I would say, there's so many fun things, T-shirts and mugs and gift cards and so many fun things. But even, one of the things that means so much to me and makes me just seriously smile is a review. I love seeing reviews come in. It's so fun to, you meet with, you do the birth and you go in, you meet with them in the postpartum, and it's so fun and you're so close with them. And then to have this random review notification on Google or on iTunes or on Facebook or, all these platforms come in. It's one of the best gifts I feel like I receive as a doula. So I have a few, but maybe I'll read. There's some of them are long, and it's so fun to read them, you guys. Okay, so this is one. I'll read one. Do you want me to read one?
Yes.
Okay, I'll read one. Okay, it's so funny. I'm so emotional today. I don't know what it is, but it just makes me emotional. Okay, so this is from one of my cute clients. Her name's Dana. She is just adorable, and she was pregnant with her first last year in 2018, and she left me a review a couple months after her baby was born. And she said, I have never heard of doulas before I was pregnant with my first this year. After interviewing 3, I called Meagan and knew right away that she was a perfect fit. I was completely clueless on pregnancy and infant care. Meagan was thoughtful, informative, and non-judgmental on any questions that we had. Having her come to our house to personally educate my husband and myself helped us prepare in a way I didn't know would be so important until I had my baby girl. I was well informed and had the knowledge of medical procedures, and when I was overwhelmed with any medical terminology, Meagan would always jump in to explain and remind the medical team of my requests. I wouldn't have known so many more options were available to me without her. She always had my best interest. Oh my gosh, I cannot read apparently. My husband was skeptical when I first suggested a doula. After meeting her and all the help that she was to my natural birth plan that went to a C-section, he said that he would suggest her to everyone. Let me tell you guys, this cute dad, he was not sure about a doula at all. And he came to those prenatals and we chatted, and he still, I don't think, was sure, but now we're good buds. Says, I had numerous questions during the course of my pregnancy, and Meagan had given me the chance to even come to my house and try flipping techniques for my baby because her baby went breech. So we went over and did some things. Says, I had constant support the whole time, and after being a first-time mom, I had a lot of questions. Meagan was always right there for me. I am a private person, and with her, it was so easy to open up right away and have the relationship be so natural. The morning of my C-section, it was scary for both my husband and I. Meagan kept us both calm and took beautiful pictures during the surgery, and she was constantly checking in with me and my husband, preparing us for what was to happen next, answering any questions we had. My husband and I know the experience we had would have been completely different without her. After surgery, she stayed and helped latch and in recovery. if you want someone who is beyond informed and helpful, I don't need to keep boosting myself up. But anyway, so that's such a long, thoughtful review. Yeah. And when I read that, I just, I messaged her and I said, thank you so much. Like, that means the world to me. So that would be one of the biggest gifts is these reviews. And, Julie and I talk about it on this podcast all the time. We love your reviews, you guys. They really do. They make us smile. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Meagan stole mine. Because
hey, why don't you just read a review?
Okay, I will. I'll read one. But honestly, nothing touches my heart more than getting a review from somebody who I helped really work hard to get the birth that they absolutely wanted. So, we talk about it as so much, but really, and while you're at it, if you haven't had a chance to leave us a review on Facebook or Apple Podcasts yet, why don't you take a pause right now and go ahead and do that because we
would love it.
We would love it. It makes our hearts so happy.
Yeah.
Okay, so my review that I'm going to read is, I just pulled up from a client of mine who had to be induced early because she had cholestasis. And so she was amazing. It was such a fabulous birth. And, there may be a video out there floating around of me and her doing the Cupid Shuffle while she was in labor. So she says, I've never met a doula so kind and loving as Julie. She radiates sunshine. While planning my second delivery, I was devastated to find out I had a condition that would force me to be induced 3 to 4 weeks early. After every meeting, Julie filled me with encouragement and excitement. She is super knowledgeable and stays on top of all the latest research so I could ask her my endless questions throughout pregnancy. I also love how non-judgmental she is. I felt perfectly comfortable telling her my own choices as we made my birth plan. The day I went in to be induced, I hadn't slept the night before and was lying in bed exhausted for hours on Pitocin waiting for steady contractions. When Julie got there, she brought in energy and excitement, got me on my feet, made it through my whole delivery having fun and having the peaceful labor I always wanted. She had great ideas to help my labor progress and help baby move down. I also appreciated that when I was hit with the most horrible pain of my life as baby dropped and hit my tailbone, she supported me when I made the choice to get an epidural, and within minutes, I was able to control push a few times and not tear with my babe. It was better than I ever could have imagined. Me and my husband are so thankful for the support she gave us. She is simply wonderful. Oh, you guys, that makes my heart so happy just reading it again and knowing that you really help make a difference in helping women get the birth that they really want is just really the best gift.
It really is. We love it. Thank you, guys.
All right. Meagan's turn.
Yes. So
the next question I have for you is, what is the hardest thing somebody said to you when you were preparing for your own VBAC?
So there really was a lot of things that people said to me that hurt, that absolutely hurt. But one of the things that I would say that just was the hardest thing for me was, choosing to VBAC. It wasn't necessarily a hard decision for me. I knew that I wanted to VBAC, and I knew that I could VBAC, but I didn't really have a lot of people to back me up on that. And when I was telling a friend who I actually thought would really support me in my decision, she shot me right down. And she asked me if something had happened, if Rick would ever forgive me, my husband. And it was like, wait, what? Like, whoa, what are you even saying? And, she was like, what if your baby, like, what if something happens to your baby, or what if something happens to you? Like, do you think Rick will forgive you? And I was like, well, yeah, like, I don't know. Like, it was so weird. That was a really hard thing for me, because then I started questioning myself and my decision again. And I was like, but what if something does happen? Like, would my husband ever forgive me? And so that created a whole emotional roller coaster for me that didn't need to happen. So that's probably one of the hardest things someone said to me about, my decision to VBAC.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. so my hardest thing someone said to me is not as much as someone said to me, but something someone did. And I pray by now my in-laws aren't listening to the podcast because the story's about them. And I love them so much. They are amazing and incredible people. And really, I love my in-laws. I adore them. They're fabulous. I have a great relationship with them. But when we decided to switch from a hospital birth to a home birth for my VBAC, which is my second baby, my first VBAC, my father-in-law took my husband out to lunch during work because my mother-in-law told him to talk my husband into talking me out of having a home birth. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So here's my husband at dinner with his dad, or not dinner, lunch, and he is trying to reason with him to talk us going back into the hospital. And my husband came home from lunch and told that to me, and I was really surprised because I had offered to answer any questions, or I even invited them to a prenatal appointment with me to meet my midwife and all sorts of things. And still, and P.S., I was 36 weeks pregnant at this time. So then my husband came home and we invited his parents over to our house to have a discussion about how things are going to go down. And it was really cool because it was at that moment that I finally realized my husband was actually on board with this whole home birth VBAC thing because of the way he talked about it in an educated way and the way he informed his parents, and he was confident in our decision. And it wasn't a decision we just made lightly. We actually switched providers halfway through my pregnancy after feeling and honoring our intuition and putting that trust in there, and everything worked out great. But I always joke and tell everyone that my in-laws did an intervention to talk me out of home birth because that's sure what it felt like. But I'm glad we got it cleared up before baby came and everything was safe and uncomplicated and perfect.
Definitely.
Yeah. But we are going to be doing these Q&A episodes a lot more often.
Yeah.
So keep sending us your questions. You can send it to us on Instagram, on Facebook. You can email info@thevbaclink.com. And we want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us. So all bets are off. Ask us questions about anything. VBAC, birth-related, not birth-related at all, anything.
Yeah.
We are happy to talk to you so that we can get to know each other better as well. And if you haven't already, head over to the website, thevbaclink.com/shop, and we have all sorts of freebies there for you to download to help you get ready for your own successful VBAC.
Interested in sharing your VBAC? Head over to thevbaclink.com/share to submit your story. For information on all things VBAC, including online and in-person VBAC classes, the VBAC blog, and Julie and Meagan's bios, head over to thevbaclink.com. Congratulations on starting your journey of learning and discovery with the VBAC Link.